The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on effective social media advocacy strategies. I am Anita, Program Specialist with the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center. We also refer to this organization as NIWRC. As we all know, in our work to bring safety and sovereignty to Native communities, social media can be a powerful tool to raise awareness and to develop networks. Today's webinar is on effective strategies using different social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram. The goal for today's webinar is to support each tribal coalition in growing their social media presence and public outreach and awareness activities. In helping us with this effort, we have with us Anita Lucchese, Communication Specialist with NIWRC. Anita also is a graduate student at Washington State University, where she studies and teaches American and Ethnic Studies. Anita's research interests include art and healing, critical Indigenous cartography, gender violence, and decolonial love. Her current scholastic work addresses mapping and storytelling Indigenous intergenerational experiences of genocide in ways that promotes healing and restorative justice. Anita's lineage extends to the Southern Cheyenne tribe. Thank you very much, Anita, for today's webinar. Before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and turn this back over so that we can have Tara explain some of the technical know-hows regarding our control panel. Tara?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping issues. We will be taking questions during this webinar. On your control panel on the right-hand side, on a blue bar, you will see the questions panel. You can simply type that in there. Everyone has been automatically muted for the PowerPoint session of the webinar. Questions will be answered as they come in, as they fit into the PowerPoint. So they will be responding periodically with your questions. Please feel free to type any in. If they are technical, I will be responding. If they are regarding the webinar, Dorma, Sania, or Anita will be answering that for you. If you have any other problems, feel free to chat me, and I will help you individually. We are recording today's webinar. It will be available later, I believe, on YouTube, and that information will come out separately in a following email. I think that's all I have. Thank you so much. Right back to you, Dorma.
Thank you, Tara. Yeah, as Tara has indicated, we're going to be recording, so you can go ahead and view this or let other folks who are interested in this particular subject to view the recording. And the information will come out on our website, and you'll be able to find the links there. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and start this session. Anita will go ahead and keep track of the time, and hopefully we'll have enough time at the end of the webinar to field questions, which I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions because this particular topic is so very interesting. Okay, Anita, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you for the introduction, Dorma. Like Dorma said, my name is Anita Lucchese, and I'm Communication Specialist at NIWRC. So a lot of what I do for NIWRC is maintaining, our social media, whether it's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. And I also help out with all of our branding. So Rose Quilt, Program Specialist with NIWRC, who works with all of you, asked me to put on this webinar and offer, whatever knowledge or information I have on it, because she's seen NIWRC's media grow in a lot of ways, and she and I were actually working together to kind of I gave her some kind of one-on-one training in terms of building up her own advocacy, not just as NIWRC staff, but as a woman in the movement on social media. So that's kind of the background on this webinar and where the idea came from. This is the overview of what we're going to talk about today. To start out, I'm just going to go over some quick basics of using these platforms. We sent out a survey, which most people completed. Thank you. That was very helpful. And that survey was just to determine kind of where each person is at in terms of the ways that they use social media now, either in their personal life or in a professional or activist capacity. And there was quite a bit of variance. Most of you use Facebook personally, but the other ones, it was kind of all over the map. So I figured the best way to make sure that everybody's kind of at the same bare bones point is to just go over some of those basics real quick. So that's what we'll be addressing first. And then moving forward, we're going to talk about advocacy strategies in kind of 4 key areas. So we'll look at how to accrue followers, strategic posting, how to build an awareness campaign of your own, and then we'll also address very quickly some safety concerns, because as you all already know, that's something to constantly be mindful of in the work that we do, particularly when it comes to amplifying or magnifying survivor voices, because we don't want to put them at risk in any way. And then if we have time, which I'm sure we will, we'll go over, there'll be time for questions. So to start, just real quick, social media is, I'm sure as all of you know, kind of a burgeoning platform for quite a bit of activism and advocacy. We're seeing more and more Native movements resorting to social media as a way to get information across and build solidarity across geographically disconnected communities. We're also seeing a big increase in use of social media with our sister organizations and advocates in the field, Native and non-Native. So I pulled these 3 examples of the kinds of things or the kinds of ways that social media is being used in our field currently. And that's just to kind of demonstrate the power that social media has in getting this information across and why it's so crucial that we really use it to our best ability. So in the top left-hand corner, you see a tweet, a screenshot of a tweet, and that was from the hashtag #WhyIStayed, which came out in the wake of the Ray Rice scandal, because there were so many people critiquing his wife for choosing to stay with him when he was being physically abusive to her, without really any kind of understanding of why women stay in abusive relationships. So the response to it was, really this beautiful space for survivors to share their own stories on why they stayed in their own abusive relationships. And this tweet is just one example, but there were thousands and thousands of tweets that people posted publicly, and those actually were screenshotted and used in news resources as big as like the Huffington Post. And it was really kind of a great moment in terms of getting that perspective out to people who are not really doing this kind of work, who may not understand or are working from a preconceived notion of what an abusive relationship is, or don't understand, well, why doesn't she just leave? So, and then that actually it was one of the big catalysts for the ongoing discussion and media work that the NFL is doing regarding domestic violence. Underneath that, there's 2 photos of Native women holding signs saying, "Am I next?" And that was a campaign in response to the ongoing crisis regarding missing and murdered Indigenous women. It started in Canada, but there were women in the U.S. participating as well. And, like the sign says, basically it was asking, am I next? There are so many Indigenous women who are going missing or who are being murdered. How many does it have to take? Am I next? In order for there to be some kind of justice for these women. And again, there were thousands that participated. and it really it put a human face, I think, on an issue that largely gets discussed by numbers, particularly when it comes to non-natives. So that was another pretty successful awareness campaign that allowed for grassroots participation. And then finally on the right, there's a couple tweets that I personally posted. I shared my story of being a survivor of rape, and I posted them on my personal Twitter, but retweeted them on NIWRC's because I felt it was important for NIWRC to participate in the discussion, and that was the hashtag "Been Raped, Never Reported," because I was raped and I never took it to the police, I never reported. And a lot of people, you know, similar to the Why I Stayed hashtag, a lot of people don't understand why women don't report, don't go through that process. And so the hashtag "Been Raped, Never Reported" was another one of those conversations that happened in, you know, Twitter in a very public space, but that was a great kind of humbling educational moment for people who haven't experienced that violence themselves or don't work in the field. So all three of these examples, like I said, were kind of, they were big awareness campaigns, but they weren't, it was really kind of a grassroots organic thing that came together through social media, and it built these beautiful giant conversations between thousands of people from all over the continent, all over the world, that were going through this together. It helped survivors connect with one another, and it really amplified survivor voices on these issues. So those are kind of some of the examples of the power of social media and what we can do with it to affect change. So to start with going over the platforms, we'll start with Facebook because I think that's what most of you seem to be most comfortable with. Looking at the survey results, like I said, pretty much all of you use Facebook in a personal capacity. It's pretty straightforward using it as an organization. So this is a screenshot from NIWRC's page, kind of the admin perspective. Excuse me. I think there are a number of tribal coalitions that do have active Facebook pages, which is totally awesome, and then there's a few that don't. So if you're already aware of all this information, sorry, just we're going to blast through it real quick for those that don't use this. Let's see, so I'm going to get out of these slides and show you real quick. This is NIWRC's page. So as you can see, you can post here statuses, photos, and videos, and go through and scroll through your timeline. You can share photos from other pages. For example, we shared this photo from the Native Wellness Institute, and work your way down. And then you have your About section with all of your information that you can edit at any time. And then there's the photo section, which is nice because you can organize it by album if you want. So for example, for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we did 31 days of DVAM, and each day we posted a different fact on domestic violence as it affects Native people and manifests in Native communities. And that was really well received. And now it's actually been really helpful even afterwards for us to have this, because it's very quick and easy for me to go back and see, oh, I know we posted this statistic, you know, here it is. And a lot of these, for example, let's see, this album, okay, it's glitching, not sure why. This album was shared 58 times. So you can click on here and see everybody who shares it, see, you know, their comments on it. So it kind of gives you a sense of what is successful in terms of posting and what's not. And the really great thing about Facebook too is it's got this insights section, and that's great for you. The public can't see this, but you can. And it gives you these great graphs and numbers, which we literally screenshot and put directly into our reporting. It makes it so helpful when trying to report to, for example, to FIPSA, the kind of social media work that we do, or our general outreach. It's so easy to say, okay, in the last 6 months, we've gotten whatever, 1,000 new likes, and these are the kind of posts that they're interacting with, and this is our growth. It's all just right there, which is really wonderful. Facebook, I think, is the only social media site that does that. So if you're going to just choose one, I would really recommend investing in a Facebook page and keeping it active and up to date. See, it can also show you the demographics of your followers, so no surprises there. Most of the people that follow NIWRC are women, and most of our followers are in Native-heavy cities. Again, no surprise. But yeah, so Facebook has all these great statistics for you in terms of, it's been really helpful for reporting, but also being able to look back and see, okay, what's working and what's not. And it helps you kind of reassess as you go. For example, you can go to your posts and see, okay, this post was really popular. We need to post more things like this, or these two. Or these smaller ones, not so much. So it kind of helps you gauge, what's most effective for you too. So Facebook is a great thing to invest in. And let's see, Twitter is very similar. Let's see, we'll go back to the slideshow. Twitter is very similar to Facebook, and really the major difference is that your posts on Twitter are limited to 140 characters. So that's letters and spaces, any kind of punctuation. On this slide, you can see screenshots of NIWRC's Twitter timeline. It has a timeline the same as Facebook. So you have your general timeline with all of your posts from people you follow, and then there's a specific page for your organization that has all of your posts. And like Facebook, Twitter operates on follows and hashtags. So if, for example, if you participate in the hashtag Why I Stayed, someone can click on that hashtag and go through and see every participant's tweets, and we'll see yours and say, wow, NIWRC, that sounds really interesting. I'm going to follow them. And it's a, excuse me, I'm sorry, I've got a bad cold. And that's another way to get your name out there. You can also see on each tweet, the little icons in the bottom left, there's the star that's favoriting, so that's kind of like likes on Facebook, and then to the left of that is the retweet button, that's for sharing, and then to the left of that is a reply button, so that people can have kind of an ongoing conversation with you. They'll tag you in a tweet and then write what they want to say. Twitter, you can also post photos and videos and anything else like that too. The final platform we're going to go over today is Instagram. And Instagram, oh, sorry, this cough is driving me crazy. Instagram is a little bit different from Facebook and Twitter in that it's not web-based. You can access it on the internet, but it's not, you don't post to it online. You post to it on a phone app. So they have the app available on Android phones and iPhones, and it's free. It's very user-friendly and easy to use. Basically, it started as a photo sharing app, and that was really just meant to be social, but more and more organizations are starting to use it in their outreach, and it's, a lot of people will just flick through their Instagram feed when they're bored or whatever and don't want it clogging up their Facebook feed, but will see it on Instagram. So that's another great outreach tool. Instagram, for example, we can look at, this is NIWRC's page. So one nice thing about Instagram is it's really visual, and it gives people a good sense of what the organization looks like and where they're at. So it's one thing to share news articles on Facebook and things like that, but it's another to put kind of the faces of the organization right there. So for example, we have 2 program specialists in this photo, Paula Julian right here, and Rose Quilt. So it gives people a sense of, who you are. and what you're up to, aside from just sharing general information on the movement. And then similar to Twitter and Facebook, Instagram also operates off of follows, likes, and hashtags. So that's similar all across the board. Okay, let's go back to, all right, advocacy strategies. Please don't be afraid to ask any questions on using the platforms themselves. And if you want to reach out to me separately at a different time and want kind of a one-on-one tutorial and want me to help walk you through it, I am more than happy to do so. I think it's really user-friendly once you start getting used to it, but for people that don't use it a lot, it can be kind of overwhelming at first. So I am definitely down to help. Moving into advocacy strategies, so when you first start an account on one of these sites, for example, let's say you start a Twitter account for your organization, you're not going to have any followers. So you can write a tweet, but no one's going to see it. So part of getting your account set up is not just putting in your photo, your information, all that kind of stuff and starting to actually tweet, it's getting your name out there. So one good strategy is to kind of be really target who you want to follow as an organization. So on this slide here, we have a screenshot of some of the accounts that NIWRC follows on Twitter. If you kind of glance at the descriptions, you could see that not all of these people or organizations directly address violence against Native women, although they do have relevance to either violence against Native women, the field or movement as a whole, or community wellness for Native people. You know, it's all related to what we do in some kind of way. But we also make sure to reach out to, even if they don't, for example, they don't work in the movement. For example, we follow quite a few Native celebrities, and they may not be a part of the movement or a part of the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, but they do have quite a following in Native communities. So if we can get them to follow back when they see that we follow, and they'll say, oh, you know, that's good, my auntie was abused, I should follow that, you know, or, you know, that's an important cause, I'll follow that. And maybe they'll retweet something once. They have such a huge following that you're going to get followers just by association. So the more high profile people you can follow who might, you know, may not necessarily be a part of the work, but are still going to support your work, that's really important. Hopefully that makes sense. We can clear it up if there's any questions. And so Facebook, that's not as relevant because Facebook doesn't allow you, it doesn't quite work that way since you have your personal account that you manage an organizational page from. But Twitter and Instagram both work that way. And Facebook, really the best way to get followers right away is they have in the left-hand corner where it says likes, they have a section where it says you can invite someone to like the page. Just invite, for example, NIWRC just launched our new Native Love campaign, and we just started our Facebook page for it, but we already have something like 1,800 followers. That's because, you know, me and then every other NIWRC staff, we went on there and just mass invite. I mass invited every Native I'm friends with on Facebook. It's like, you know, yeah, this is important. Come check it out. So that's one way of doing that as well. Okay, strategizing posts. It's not enough just to have followers or just to post, you know, kind of blindly whatever comes up, although it's important to post frequently. One of the biggest and most important things is making sure that your language is appropriate for your audience when it comes to posting. So for example, if you're going to post something on Facebook, be mindful that it's a general population. It's not necessarily all advocates and policymakers. You know, it's, you know, your auntie on the res, it's your niece in college, it's, you know, it's a wide range of people who aren't necessarily wanting to read something in very technical language. Facebook is not the appropriate place for that. That doesn't mean that you don't post things that have technical language in them, but break it down in something simple and short casual, and that way it's a little more palatable and engaging to somebody who's just kind of coasting through their Facebook feed to see what's going on. The other important thing is keeping on topic. So it's good to post on a wide variety of issues, and in fact you should be posting very regularly and have an active page. I would say like NIWRC's page, for example, we post at the very base level minimum a couple times a week. And that really is the absolute minimum, because people aren't, the way Facebook works, people aren't going to see your posts unless they're engaging with them over time. And so the less you post, the less you're reaching out to people. So post frequently, but also post mindfully. So that includes the language that you post with it, but as well as, you know, the kinds of things that you post and participate in. So in terms of staying on topic, for example, some of the hashtags I shared earlier, like hashtag why I stayed, or hashtag, you know, am I next? Those are really important things going on that your organization may not be participating in formally, but they're important to get the word out on, to encourage other survivors or people to participate in, you know, and it's important, a lot of those hashtags are not specific to any one community. And in our work, it's very important that we empower and magnify Native women's voices and experiences. And so really encouraging Native people to participate in those things. And really, you know, even if you just have one person in your coalition or one person that you work with in your community that's willing to kind of contribute to that in some kind of way, and get those perspectives out, that's huge. And it can be a really powerful advocacy tool and educational tool for non-Native people who may not have any understanding of domestic or sexual violence to begin with, and then really don't have an understanding of how that affects Native people. So participating in those things can really go a long way. And like I said, people search things like those hashtags and may find you on there when they would have never found you otherwise. So it's a great kind of advertising strategy for you as well. Finally, with posting, posting is a great opportunity for branding. So not just branding in terms of your logo or your name or, you know, your colors or anything like that, but branding in terms of the public face of your coalition. You want people to know you as an organization. You know, when they think of, you know, a Native organization in your region or your community that addresses violence against Native women, you want the first thing to pop in their head to be you, you know, as a resource, right? And so part of that is really kind of figuring out what you want your brand and your image to look like. You know, the kind of language that you want to present yourself with, and then also who you are as an organization. You know, what do your staff look like? What does your office look like? What do you do on the day-to-day? Because a lot of people who are not in the field just have no understanding of the kind of day-to-day things that someone like a program specialist at NIWRC does. Or when that person travels, they don't understand what's going on. So part of the work that I've been doing with NIWRC and working with our program specialists is really encouraging them to, you know, not only send information to me to post, but to post on their own personal pages that NIWRC can, you know, retweet or repost with, you know, photos from every event. That's really critical because photos are much more engaging than just text. Or even if it's something like, you know, photos are great if you're at a big event, but if you're just sitting at your desk, it can kind of be like, well, what do I even share? You know, but something as simple as, for example, on Instagram, take a photo. For example, I'll take a photo of a draft, I don't know, graphic that I'm designing for the cover of a reader, something like that, or a poster for the Women Are Sacred conference. Or, you know, a draft document that I'm working on, and then you can put in a little sentence on what it's about and why it's important. just little things like that, that maybe the picture by itself may not be that interesting, but it's a way to kind of show people who are not a part of the field and not a part of the movement all the things that you're doing. And it makes your organization more personable and people more likely to reach out to you in the future when they need, you know, technical assistance, a training, or they have somebody who's looking for help, whatever it may be. You're going to pop up in their mind sooner if you are branding yourself in a way that shows that you're approachable and shows that you're doing concrete things. So that's really key. Next is some tips for building an awareness campaign of your own. So it's not just participating in, you know, pre-existing grassroots campaigns like #WhyIStayed. You can also create your own. And these are just a few small tips for it. It really needs to address a concrete, easily definable, and explained topic. So if you just try to do a campaign on violence against Native women, for example, and just leave it there like that, that would be great, but it's so huge and so ambiguous that it's difficult. People aren't going to fully understand what's going on with it because they're going to have different ideas of what you're addressing. It really needs to be something immediate right away. Oh, I know what that's about. And something that's easy for people to talk about. For example, it's really difficult for people to talk about domestic violence or sexual assault sometimes. And we can create an awareness campaign around it, but it needs to be phrased and worded and branded in a way that makes it easy to talk about. Because if you make it really intense or, you know, like really emotionally intense or add a lot of technical language, it's just going to go in one ear and out the other, because people are going to get, you know, kind of, they're going to shy away from it. So make it concrete, make it accessible and relevant. I think those are the three keywords: concrete, accessible, and relevant to your home community or whatever community you work in. And in building your campaign and getting more people to participate and be aware, you can utilize a selfie challenge. For example, we looked at the Am I Next campaign that used a selfie. Hashtags are another great way, which we've talked about already. Contest prizes, for example, on Facebook, or, you know, even Instagram and Twitter too. People will have, you know, for example, you know, win a pair of beaded earrings if you retweet this, you know, or if you participate in this and say, you know, say what a healthy relationship means to you. Those are great ways of giving people an incentive to participate. And similarly, a giveaway, you know, is the same kind of idea. And then celebrity spokespeople, we talked about that too in terms of strategic following. If you can just have even one celebrity, they don't have to be a big celebrity, you know, even just like a native celebrity, to kind of get on board with what you're doing, even if it's a simple retweet or post saying, hey, check them out, they're doing cool stuff, that can really go a long way. So to show you an example, NIWRC just launched our Native Love campaign, and Native Love is meant to promote healthy relationships among Native youth by empowering them to think and talk about what Native love means to them. And so we launched it to honor Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, and it's continuing through this summer. We're doing a contest competition to get the conversation going and to give kids an incentive to participate. So the contest prizes potentially include a trip to a university of their choice, a trip to like Gathering of Nations powwow or Denver March powwow, Santa Fe Indian Market, a Shawnee Schimmel basketball game. So it's tailored to Native youth. They have their selection. And then the contest is submit a photo or video of what Native love means to them, and then post it with the hashtag like you see here, Native Love Is. And then we can go to that hashtag and see all of the contest entries as well as our own posts. For example, you can see NIWRC staffer Rebecca Baylog posting her video here. We also used or employed the help of celebrity spokespeople. We worked with Buffalo Nickel Media and the 1491s to get the ball rolling. So we have Ryan Redcorn's video here. Dallas Goldtooth did one as well. Here's his. And we've gotten a really positive response to it. Like I said, we just launched it recently on February 9th, and we've already got 1,600 likes. We've gotten a few contest entries and a lot of really positive response, both on Facebook as well as when we took it into the community. We had NIWRC staff and some members of the 1491s go to Chemawa Indian School to work with teens directly. And that was a really great way to kind of launch the campaign and get it going. So that's an example of how to use some of these tips to really build your campaign and make your intervention in that way. And finally, excuse me, just a quick note on advocacy strategies in terms of safety for survivors and even current victims in doing this work. Like I said, I'm sure you all already know that this is something to be mindful of constantly, both on and offline. But we do have to be, there's a lot of great ways to be supportive to survivors using social media, but we do have to be careful. So if you're going to share someone's photo, name, location, or personal story, it's imperative that you get their written permission and that you sit down with them and really discuss kind of what the larger ramifications or what their safety plan is in terms of dealing with any kind of backlash that they may have, whether that's community backlash or online cyberbullying, any kind of legal issues. For example, in our Survivor Stories campaign, we had a person share their experience of domestic violence and kind of in a roundabout way name the perpetrator. They didn't share the name directly, but anyone in the community would be able to kind of figure it out and piece it together. And there was quite a bit, legal backlash with threats of, that it was libel, and she was getting backlash from her family, like different members of her family. It was just like, it really blew up to, kind of a toxic level that was really not in her best interest and, kind of put her at risk. Mostly emotionally, but for other people it may put them at risk physically too. So those things are always things to bear in mind. Even if somebody is, yeah, I want to share, that's great. Just make sure that they understand everything that's going to go on or everything that could go on when they do share. That way they walk into it knowledgeable and, knowing up front what may happen. And of course, it's our responsibility to provide support to people when they do experience that kind of backlash. And just as a side note, you put your organization at risk if you don't get written permission when you share something like that first, because they can actually come to you later and say, oh, I didn't understand, or oh, I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm uncomfortable with that, and you put me at risk. And so it's about supporting them and also kind of covering you too, is making sure that you go through that process. It's better for everyone involved. And kind of the last point, be prepared to be an advocate and a relative online too. I know each one of you knows how to be an advocate and a relative offline, but there are quite a few instances where, for example, NIWRC, our Facebook page, we get messages from mostly Native people at least once every couple weeks, if not more regularly than that, with people wanting to share their stories with us. They find our page, they're inspired to come forward and share their story. And even if they just want to share it privately over messaging, we have a responsibility to take care and in helping them share their story and, kind of encourage and empower them to do what's going to be best for them with their experiences of violence. It's something that, to be honest, when I was first starting this work with NIWRC, I wasn't expecting, because we've gotten messages from like 15, 16-year-old girls who have not come forward to anyone about this information, and they're states away from anybody, and it's difficult for us to kind of do the direct service work or help them out in that way. But we do have to, I've kind of learned the hard way, like, okay, if we get a message like that, you need to respond in a prompt, timely manner. You don't want them feeling ignored, and one of the worst parts about Facebook is you can see when the message is read. So if they see that you read the message and then you didn't respond until 3 days later, that person's going to end up hurt, probably. So there's kind of a responsibility to, come at it as a relative, and to use all of these platforms, not just in a professional capacity in terms of trying to build your organizational outreach, or an advocate's perspective in being, an activist and trying to get the message out, but we're a relative online too. And so part of that is being prepared with, resources and recommendations when you will get messages like that, being mindful of...
Anita?
Yeah.
This is Dorma. We have a question. Sorry to interrupt you. And I thought it would be appropriate to go ahead and give you that question right now, because we're talking about this particular area. The question is it safer to have the victim and or survivor post the story rather than a coalition to lessen that liability, the liability you were talking about earlier? Or is the liability the same since it is on our page, meaning, the coalition's page?
Yeah, I think if it's going to end up on the coalition's page, the liability is the same. It might be lessened if the victim shares it themselves first, but I would still, I'm always careful in terms of sharing that kind of stuff. It's different if it's somebody, it's really kind of, you have to gauge the situation, because if it's somebody that's been in the movement for a long time and shared their story publicly quite a few times, written it publicly, then it's something, okay, they've put it out there. But if it's a person who hasn't really come forward with those details or those experiences before, and definitely if it's somebody who's not a part of the movement, it's worth it just to send a little message, even if it's an email or a Facebook message or, something like that, just saying, hey, I was really inspired by what you shared. I think a lot of other people would be too. Is it okay if I share it? They'll probably say yes, but it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and take that extra step. Another thing that I forgot to mention kind of in that, excuse me, in that area is that it's important to, while it's important to discuss these issues on, on our media pages and to magnify and empower survivors' voices themselves, we also need to be mindful of what's going to be triggering to other people who follow our pages. So there's a difference between sharing a survivor story of saying, yes, I was a victim of domestic violence, and he manipulated me and abused me, and I felt like I couldn't leave because, he was financially abusing me. Something like that is totally shareable. Something with a lot of details, especially anything with graphic details, I make the call not to share. And it's not because I don't want to support that person sharing their story, it's because I don't want to traumatize and trigger someone who's following our page and doesn't have the opportunity to block that out. And doesn't have the warning ahead of time, it's different when you're at a training or something and you have, excuse me, you have a safe room set aside to help someone kind of go through those emotions. But when it's someone just, imagine if you're, I don't know, sitting in the doctor's office flipping through Facebook, waiting, and you see something that's just mean, it can really mess you up. It can mess your whole day up. And it can really throw you off. So I try to be, especially as a survivor myself, I try to be mindful of that kind of stuff. And that's just a call that you're going to have to make case by case, but it's something to be mindful of.
Right. And sometimes that I think it would be very difficult because on the one hand, we're trying to get the truth out there, but on the other hand, like you indicated, we need to be careful. And so sometimes it's not always easy to identify where that line is. So I guess best judgment and webinars, you know, such as this to get that information out there would be helpful. You know, we have encouraged stories to be told because that informs individuals what is actually happening out there, and also informs policymakers so that, you know, we're able to respond through policy in an appropriate way. But, you know, on the other hand, we have all of these, you know, triggers and liabilities, all of that we need to be mindful of also.
Yeah, well, and it's not, at the end of the day, it's counterproductive to what we're trying to do if we're triggering survivors or re-traumatizing them in any way. For example, you know, me personally, I don't know if all of you saw, there was a campaign that I think Montana State put it out, or was it a city, Missoula maybe? I'm not sure, I don't remember. But they had those new posters out where it said, you know, it said a line that is typically associated with date rape, like, you know, she was drunk and, you know, I could have, like, and was ready to go home with me or whatever, in big text, and then underneath it, it says, but I did the right thing and took her home. And it was kind of like, you know, it draws you in with such a horrible big line, and then you read the smaller text, and it's about date rape prevention. It's very effective with some people. It was super triggering for me as a rape survivor, because one of those posters had one of the things that the guy who raped me said, and it was like being hit by a ton of bricks. And so sometimes, you know, that's not what they meant by it, but it's what happened. So that's why I bring up just being mindful of the kinds of things that we share. And it's a hard, like Dorma said, it's a hard line to tread, and it's really something that you have to just do case by case. But it is something to be mindful of. Dorma,
we also recently, thank you for that. I don't see any other follow-up questions, and if you all have questions out there, this is the time to get those questions out so we can have Anita address them. We did have recently a sharing about information that you put on your Facebook page too, to be careful of where that's coming from, because someone had shared that they had taken, or one of their staff had taken something from someone else's page and put that on theirs, and then ended up with a letter, you know, saying that permission wasn't granted to the individual who used that information, and so that person was then asking for $800, you know, for a settlement. So that was something that had come up. So I'm glad we're covering this particular area, Anita.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, just a simple, even if it seems like you don't need to do it, it really doesn't hurt to just send a really quick little message saying, hey, is it okay if I share this? Because that can make a big difference. And people will appreciate that you asked, even if the answer is yes, of course.
Yeah, that's right. I don't see any other questions, but I'm glad, Anita, that you put out that if anyone is needing some extra help or walkthroughs, because this particular area can be very difficult for people that are challenged like myself. I'm still trying to get myself up to use Instagram and the others. I mean, Facebook is okay, but you know, I mean, some of us need a little bit more help, especially the coalitions that are trying to advance their outreach, you know, to be able to help them along, because this has been very effective for NIWRC. You know, we're getting a lot of information out there, you know, with your assistance, and I'm sure that the coalitions would appreciate being able to learn a little bit more and maybe have somebody like you to walk them through it.
Yeah, of course. And here's my email for anybody who wants it. Feel free to shoot me an email anytime. I know that all of this kind of upfront can be very overwhelming, especially since we're not sitting here, going through it together. But if you want any kind of help, whether it's one-on-one or just a couple people from your coalition, I am totally down and available to help out, whether it's learning the platform itself or kind of going over some of these other strategies, and I can help you, kind of tailor it to your coalition. I am available for that anytime you would like. Please just shoot me an email and I would be more than happy to help.
Yeah, Anita, we've got Jermaine who indicated that she's new to Twitter, just like I am, and she may be calling for assistance. Yeah, Twitter is something that is out there and effective, but of course, you have to be able to know how to utilize it in a way that is going to be, good for your organization. So, yeah. So Jermaine, feel free to call Anita, get that help that you need.
Yep, call me anytime.
Okay, she says she'll be calling you, Anita.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always good to get that help because there's a lot of things that we hear that we understand will be helpful, but we just don't know how to get there. And so when we have folks like yourself with those special skills, to help us along, then we get it done and we look back and we say, oh, that wasn't so bad. But it's just making
everybody at NIWRC was like, when I first said, okay, everybody needs to start using, Instagram and Twitter, it was like, what? Oh my goodness, and kind of freaked out a little bit. But we went through it, and now like Rose is a Twitter dynamo. She's so good at it. She's better than me, because she's just gotten so used to using it now. So there's a fast learning curve with it.
Or a slow learning curve, like with me. Yeah, I'm on that slow end.
Well, that's okay too.
Yeah, I guess it's the trick to it is just using it, constantly and getting comfortable with it so that it's, nothing new. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are out there, and coalitions are very busy. They don't have all of the staff that are available to put all of these things together for them. So, they're wearing many different hats and learning skills and trying to make things very effective in their area. So, yeah.
Well, and that's one of the reasons Rose asked me to put together this webinar is because it's only been a few months that I've been on the team serving tribal coalitions, and I haven't gotten a chance to meet most of you. I've met a few of you at different trainings or events, so it's kind of also an introduction for me too, because I know that Tang helps some of you with any kind of technical assistance that you need regarding IT stuff, and similar to Tang, I'm on call and available for you guys. So any kind of social media help or graphic design and branding help, I'm totally there. So please utilize me as a resource for any of that kind of stuff.
Okay, there's one follow-up question to an earlier question, and that is, does your organization use Hootsuite or any of the Facebook scheduling apps? I have no idea what that is, Anita, so.
I think in the past we may have used Hootsuite. I don't personally use it. We do schedule posts ahead of time. Facebook is really helpful for that. So like you can see here, these are all of our posts queued up for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And you can choose the date and the time that you want it to post and post the link and all of the text that you want accompanying it. And that way you don't have to go on and post it when you want it posted. Or you don't have to remember, okay, next week I want to post this, because it's all just right here queued up. So that's really useful, and we do a lot of that. But we've looked into using WooBox, and Tang is the person to ask about WooBox because it's relatively new to me, and I think he's still ironing out some of the kinks with it. So there are programs out there like that that kind of collapse all of your social media or unite them together so that when you post one place, it posts all the other places. You can schedule it all at the same time, and they are useful, but they're also really complicated sometimes. So I don't recommend jumping in and using them right away.
Okay, can you repeat that, Anita? That was what?
It's called WooBox, WOO Box. It's similar to Hootsuite.
Okay, I wasn't sure I got that. I thought you said Who Box
No.
or Blue Box. I'm like,
I know, these all have weird names. Any other questions?
Anyone else have questions out there? I'm not seeing any more. I don't see any other questions, Anita.
Okay.
I'm sure they're just all overwhelmed with all of this stuff and just probably want to have this an opportunity to try it out, and then I'm sure you'll get all of the requests to help.
Sounds good. Yeah. Like I said, just email me and we'll set up a time, and we can actually we can use something like GoToMeeting, and we can share screens back and forth, and I can kind of do it interactive with you too, if that's what's easier.
Yeah, I think that would be very helpful. You know, just flipping through all of this, I think that folks are able to see, you know, all of this information. When you were doing the Facebook thing, and you know, I mean, you can have shares, there's just so many things that are that can be done with all of this. I mean, my mind's kind of going crazy here too. Yeah, so
all right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. Here's my email one last time.
Yeah, and please give Anita a call. She has all this information and is willing to share and help you all along. So we want to thank all of you for joining this particular webinar. We know it's a little bit different than what we've normally been doing, but I think it's very helpful too. And I'm sure that you will find, once you get going with all of this stuff, you'll find that it's going to advance a lot of your outreach. So thank you everyone for joining. That concludes our webinar.